Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Homes for All virtual legislative kickoff, the Road Home Legislation, Inspiration, and Education. We'll be spending about an hour and a half here and having a lot of great guest speakers. Just to introduce myself quickly, I am one of the new co-chairs for the Homes for All Coalition. Chad Adams, again, with the CEO with the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. And Pastor Sue Kosterman is unable to attend and join us today. She had a personal family matter come up here at the last minute. So let's keep her in our prayers and thoughts as well too as we navigate through the meeting today. At first, I also just want to mention that the chat feature is enabled. So we really encourage you to put your name and your organization and maybe even your title in that chat feature as we can kind of get to know each other throughout the event here today. And also can use the Q&A feature. We've got a couple of different representatives here from the coalition. We'll be watching that so we can make sure that we get some answers to the various different questions that are being provided here today. And certainly want to thank everybody for joining today. We had a great 2020. Obviously with the bonding bill, a lot of the policy and funding recommendations and approvals that were coming forward through this past year. Really appreciate all of your engagement. Looking forward to a strong 2021 as well too. So thank you everybody for all your passionate engagement at the Capitol and all the work that we do for our coalition. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our MC, Paul Slack, with a social justice advocate with Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. Paul.
Well, thanks, Chad. We're going to kick off with our impactful stories now. And first up, we will have Jeremy with the ARC Minnesota.
Thanks, Paul. As Paul said, I am Jeremy Creasy. I am representing ARC Minnesota. I'm a 29-year-old man that struggles with epilepsy as my disability, also some mental health stuff and addiction. I'm going to start off today by saying a quote from Herb Brooks. He is the Minnesota Miracle Man. And his quote is, "Great moments are born from great opportunities." And I think that's what we have today. So my story starts a long time ago. I've been in a lot of different housing programs, but in short, let's speed things up to about 2 years ago. I was in a group home setting and I got connected with ARC and I realized I wanted to become independent, and it was all good and stuff, but I realized I was not able to make the deposit. And in short, what seemed to be a bad thing for a lot of people, COVID, turned out to be the best thing for me because I ended up getting a stimulus check. And that's what I used my stimulus check for, was to make that deposit for my apartment. And in short, what happened with becoming independent, I have held down a job for almost a year and a half. I've had a relationship and I have my own space. But through the year, I realized I wanted more, just like many people do in a good way. I want family, kids, and any other things. But I realized through different programs and stuff like this, that there's a financial process with this that you're kind of stuck, if you will, because if you get too much money, you lose services, insurance, and other stability things. And so I realized that I have to invest in myself. Like now I've started school at Purdue University, and I kind of call it the quantum leap, if you will. I have to invest in myself a lot of time and effort. And if I fail, I will just end up being homeless again. And that's a big risk, but I'm willing to do it because I have to make enough money to get to what my dreams and goals are, which is family, kids, and other financial things that I would like to have. And that I feel is a lot of people out there in the world that are getting housing, but there's no transition to it. It's just black and white. This is what has to happen. And I realized that very quick. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just a very risky situation because in the prior front, it's just transition, 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 and then it kind of gets stuck. And I just don't know what to do with that. And that's kind of where I am. And so I want to leave you briefly with a lasting thought. Do you have dreams or goals? What could you do to get them? I won't give up, even if it means starting over and over again and losing everything that I have, going back to homelessness, because the reward outweighs the risk. I won't give up. I'm going to keep seeking my wants and my goals of family, a house, other things in life that I have, because the reward outweighs this risk. I won't give up. I'm going to keep trying. If you have dreams or goals, I hope you wouldn't either, because giving up means that there is nothing to dream or hope for. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing your story today. Next, excuse me, Jeremy, for sharing your story today. Next, we'll have Kevin.
I was going to say, I gave a pretty good speech there, but thanks, Jeremy.
I was anticipating.
My name is Kevin Formal, and I'm coming from Churches United for the Homeless in Moorhead, Minnesota. So we're ways up here. But we have the same struggles as the metro area. Actually, the shelter that I am currently a shelter advocate at, and I work full-time here, I stayed at 7 years ago. So it's talk about seeing both sides of the spectrum. Doors I couldn't go through before, I'm going through. They gave me keys. So it's pretty amazing. So when it comes to housing, a little bit about my past. I've been homeless off and on for many years. I struggled with addiction as well. And like a lot of people that come through our shelters with mental illness, you see it in almost everybody, unfortunately, in one way or another. And that makes it hard. Things can become overwhelming when you're in here. And for me, I guess the biggest thing was, like Jeremy was saying, is I got hooked up with a program with Lakes and Prairie and in West Central Minnesota here. And that is a great program. And they were able to help me financially to get an apartment, but it's finding the affordable housing, because they kind of just send you on your own. Like, yeah, we'll help you pay for it, but you have to find it. Go find it. But it's hard to find affordable housing, especially if you don't have transportation, if you don't, especially in more rural areas like we have. And so it makes it very hard. We have a lot of obstacles, and they seem to be just building apartments, and apartments are always building up here. But I mean, $2,000 a month, it's and plus deposit. You're looking at $4,000. It's like, what do we? It's like all or nothing. And, so you start working. So like I started getting a job, and then I got less funding for, per month for an apartment, and it wasn't the nicest of apartments, but that's, it was better than nothing. And it is kind of black and white. It's either don't have a job and we'll give you all this assistance, or if you start working, we're going to take all this away. And then you're just kind of like, well, I don't make enough to do this, and you're back into homelessness. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle that goes round and round. And if there's some way we could have that like gray area, where we kind of help keep supporting people, even a few months into their full-time job or whatever kind of just to keep that program going, whatever it may be, I think it would be a great help. And then just touching back, and then just, I know another thing with people in the shelter, a lot of people may have a little bit of a background. And that's a huge thing for housing as well. Even the smallest detail, and these housing places will deny you, and don't even, and especially if you have like a felony or something like that, I mean, it's almost impossible. So I think with affordable housing and with more open-minded landlords willing to give people a break, and around up here in Fargo and Moorhead, they're starting to, some companies are starting to open up like that, and that's good to see. But yeah, there's just not a lot of options for affordable housing up here, and it's just a dire need in greater Minnesota. There's a lot of people struggling up here. So But yeah, that's about all I got. I won't take all your time. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we will have Alexis with Freedom from the Streets.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone who is watching. My name is Alexis Kramer. I'm with Freedom from the Streets. I help the homeless community, and I also help families that are dealing with child protection. A little bit about my background is I grew up in foster care twice as a child. I was abused and neglected as a child, and I have 2 children on my own. I am 26 now. And about 2 years ago, my children were removed from my care. My story is a little bit different than others because my story is not a success story yet. I am still currently fighting with child protection, but I am getting false allegations of child abuse and neglect because, like I said, I grew up in foster care, and I am also a person of color. And I am also low income. So because my children were removed from my care, I was homeless for almost 15 months a year ago in Hennepin County, Minnesota. And I just finally got into a GRH program. And for people who don't know what GRH is, it's a group residential housing where I share a townhome with 2 other women. And I've been in that program for 4 months. And it's a program that actually helps parents fight against child protection and help get their children back. But the struggle that I'm having right now is I am unable to work because I got 4 pending felonies on my background. And I'm unable to get permanent housing. So the struggle right now for me is getting into permanent housing so I can get my 2 children back. I am not what CPS is claiming I am. I do have mental health issues, and supposedly I am being listed as a criminal, but I'm not a criminal. I'm just a person that is willing to ask for help, but I get denied for help because I am a young mother and a single mother at the same time. But I am doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I have court next month, and I have a really good chance that I'm going to get my 2 children back. But my thing is, I need to get permanent housing. So I am hoping that I can find people that are willing to work with me to help me get my 2 children back. I finally just got a car like a week ago before New Year's. And I feel like with the blood of Jesus, I'm getting everything that I'm supposed to be getting. And I'm hoping in the future, I can get my children back and be with my family so I can grow and get to where I need to be within the next 5 years. So that is all I would like to say. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to private message me. And thank you for allowing me to speak today. And thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you again, Jeremy, Kevin, and Alexis for those powerful stories, for sharing with us your dreams, and for inspiring all of us to continue to work so that everybody has the stable housing that they need. Now we'll hear from Homes for All communications team.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Hobart. I'm a policy and advocacy coordinator at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. And I'll let Caitlin introduce herself as well.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Myers, and I'm with Habitat for Humanity of Minnesota as the Communications and Events Project Manager at that organization. As Julia said, we're both members of the communications team along with several others. And that's one of 3 teams that helps do the work at the Homes for All Coalition. There's the policy team, community engagement team, and communications. And it's definitely hard to follow those powerful stories, but actually that's one of our best tools, is being able to share those stories from people who have that lived experience and understand the stakes of everything that Homes for All is working for. So we have those stories, and we are our main role is to help support the community engagement team and policy team with communication needs they have, as well as the whole coalition. And we also maintain and update the Homes for All website, which Julia is going to go through in just a couple minutes. We do social media, traditional media, such as press releases, and create graphics as well. We're also always seeking new members, so if anyone is interested, we meet twice a month, and we meet virtually as everything right now. So you can always contact us for more information if you're interested in joining. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Julia to show the website.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. So bear with me, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so if everything went as planned, you should now see the Homes for All website, homesforallmn.org. Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin. So we wanted to present on today's agenda and share a little bit about how the communications team creates materials and resources to help advance the work that the coalition does. Like Caitlin shared a little bit about what we work on, and we create resources to help advocates work on Homes for All's agenda. So one of those main resources is our website. And I will just walk through the structure of this a little bit so that you all on your own time can follow up and learn more about our work and how to get involved. So again, our URL is homesforallmn.org. When you get to the site, you can click on the main menu, and there are 4 main sections to our website. So the first is who we are. There is a leadership section, which has information about the current co-chairs of the 3 teams, policy, community engagement, and communications, as well as a list of endorsing organizations and some stories. So what Caitlin mentioned and what we heard from Jeremy and Kevin and Alexis, stories are really, really powerful, and they root the work that we do in the lived experience of people. And so you can find more stories there on our website in the Who We Are section. We have a section on our agenda. So there's more information on endorsing the Homes for All agenda. We have over 270 endorsing organizations across the state. So if your organization is not one of them currently and you wish to be, you can find out more about that process here. You can also see more about our state legislative agenda. So I'm going to skip that for now because we'll come back to that. Here in the latest news section, you'll find the link to our blog, our calendar, media information, and you can also sign up for updates. So any key updates or things that people should know, we will put on the blog. The calendar has information about our meeting times and events like this. And then if you sign up for updates, you will receive any action alerts or email communications that the coalition sends out. So this is a great way to stay up to date on what we're working on. And I will go to this last tab, which is Get Involved. So this has the main, it's the main source of resources, I would say, for advocates. So here, there's another link to endorse the agenda. You can sign up for updates. If you have a story about your experience with housing, there's a link here for you to fill out a form and share your own story with us and connect with us that way, which we invite everyone to do. And then there's also other links about ways to stay involved, information about our coalition team meetings, more information about events, and then Twitter as well. So I'm going to jump back to the agenda part because that was one thing I wanted to talk about. So every year we put together an agenda one-pager, and this document is for advocates to use when they're meeting with their lawmakers and state legislators. It's a one-pager, so back and front, covering our agenda. So this is our 2021 legislative agenda, and we have 4 main policy priority areas, I would say. And folks are going to talk about that more throughout the course of this event, so I'll let the experts speak to that. But I just wanted to direct you all to where you can find this document. If you have a meeting with a lawmaker and you want to have something to refer to, this is a great resource for you. And if you're interested in letting anyone else know about the Homes for All agenda, this is a resource for you as well. There is information for our policy co-chairs on this. You can always be in touch with them. and more information about our work. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and turn it over to Caitlin to talk about our social media.
Thanks, Julia. Other than the website, which Julia did a great job of going through, social media is a main way that we communicate with our coalition and with other supporters and advocates. And so you can see on this slide, both our Facebook and our Twitter are linked, and that is a great place to find content if you're looking for upcoming events, if you're looking for what our agenda is. In addition to our website, we're posting on social media quite a bit. Another one of our main communications tools is action alerts, which Julia had shown how to get signed up for those in the Get Involved tab on the website. Those are tangible emails that are sent out with easy step-by-step instructions for an action that we're asking our advocates and supporters to take. Usually it's something like calling or emailing your representatives, signing onto a letter, something like that. And those actions are pretty quick and easy to do, but the more people that do them, the more our message gets across to our elected officials that this is a really important item for us. So those are something that our supporters get every time there's an action that we'd like them to take. Another one of our tools are Twitter storms. So those are short periods of time when advocates get together on Twitter and send a high volume of tweets on a specific topic. It's something that the communications team uses to get interest and excitement about something in particular. And a goal is usually to get the topic trending and catch the attention of all the relevant legislators and or elected officials. The Twitter storms are actually a pretty easy tool, even if Twitter is not your favorite place to be. We pre-create all the content and have a document. You can find that in the blog section on our website. And then we just ask folks to join us throughout the hour to tweet, retweet, quote, like, or reply to tweets so that we can get that topic trending and get the attention of the relevant lawmakers. We also usually have hashtags to keep all those tweets in the same and keep all those tweets connected. One of the reasons we use Twitter is it's really important for us to communicate on channels that our elected officials use, and so many of them are on Twitter. So that's one of the reasons we do that. We will be having a Twitter storm next week to promote our legislative agenda. And so stay tuned later in the program for some details on that. And that wraps up our section. I'll turn it back to Paul.
Thank you, Combs. Next, we will hear from our policy team, which will talk about our legislative agenda.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everyone. Hello, my name is Carrie Johnson. I am the Senior Policy Advisor at the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, and I serve as one of the 3 policy co-chairs for the Homes for All Coalition. So what I'm going to do is provide kind of an overview of our full agenda for the 2021 legislative session, but then we also will have 5 issue spotlights that will be presented by organizations kind of helping to lead that work. And so I do want to encourage, we do have some time to answer some questions. So if you do have questions about the policy agenda, specific things, you know, we're kind of touching these things in a pretty high level. So if you do have questions, please feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A option, although I can see the chat easier than the Q&A because I'm not the host of, so I don't know that I can see them all, but feel free to drop those in there. And so now I'll kick off kind of how we got to where we are right now. And so Homes for All typically always tries to represent the full continuum of housing. And what does that mean? So the full continuum means everything from supporting people that are currently unhoused and looking for transitional housing, needing supportive services, and finding secure rental housing, whether or not you need supportive services, all the way through manufactured housing and homeownership opportunities, particularly utilizing them as a wealth building opportunity, particularly for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so our agenda is always kind of pretty broad, but that's because we do represent the full continuum. And as we all know, the needs are so great in the housing space. And so I did drop in the handout that the communications team put together. It's hot off the press. It's just got completed this morning. So thank you to the communications team for putting that together. And so as Caitlin and Julia kind of mentioned, there are some key areas that we're trying to focus on and highlight, which are protecting rights and advancing equity, advancing homeownership and wealth building opportunities, creating and preserving more homes, and then providing shelter and supportive services. So within those, as you'll see on the screen now, there are kind of these goals and themes. And so we as a coalition certainly shifted, and we were responsive as much as we could last year in 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic hit, to try to advocate for resources that our shelters need, that our outreach workers needed, to support housing assistance, the eviction moratorium. And so we as a coalition wanted to remain flexible enough to respond to the immediate needs of folks that are being impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is something that we're still focusing on this year. In addition to the specific other items that are listed on the right-hand side, we are also going to be advocating for budget targets in our relevant committees. And to just kind of put that in more layman's terms, so what that means is every committee is granted a budget target that they are able to either increase or decrease funding for programs that fall within their committee's jurisdiction. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we know that our programs and the resources are limited and underfunded. So that is something that we have always advocated for. And we will continue to do that. We're also seeking fairness in the tax code and supporting raising revenues. And so I'm not going to go over all of the items that are listed on our agenda, but again, if you have specific questions about those, I encourage you to use the chat feature, and I can either answer them through there, or we can have one of the kind of experts that are about to present highlight some more information. So I will turn it over first to Tyra, who I believe is going to present on the Shelter Residents Bill of Rights. Tyra, are you on?
Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. First, I just want to say thank you for everyone who was able to take time out of their day to come hear about the work of ending homelessness and stabilizing shelters, and hearing about how Homes for All is supporting so many different ventures. So I also want to thank Homes for All for allowing or having, I should say, Street Voices speak to power with you here. My name is Tyra Thomas, and I've been on and off homeless for 20 years. I'm born and raised in the state of Minnesota. And I say it with the T because it's one of my pet peeves when people call it soda. It's not a pop. Minnesota with a T, it's native tongue. And so that's one of my pet peeves. However, over the course of 20 years in my hometown, on and off homeless with children and without children. And my personal experience in shelter was horrific. The treatment of folks at shelter was just really disgusting. There's so many parts of it that there's just really not enough time for me to say it all, other than the fact that folks' homeless shelter residents were not being respected in these spaces. There was verbal abuse, physical abuse, financial exploitation, you name it. I mean, it just went on and on. I was really perplexed on how to deal with that, and I made attempts through grievance policies, but things hadn't changed. I was fortunate to get housing. I've been housed for 5 years. It has not been without struggle. However, in my first year of being, I could not let go of my experience at shelter. My thoughts around the friends that I made there in the homeless community, that they would be still subject to such um, abuse at shelters. And so I was searching for a way to have my voice heard. And it just seemed like everywhere I went, folks were not getting it until Street Voices of Change was established. I am a facilitator of the original Street Voices meeting place, which is at Central. It has grown to 4 locations now and about 150 of us. We are supported by Align, which is formerly known as the Downtown Congregations to End Homelessness. And that's about 20,000 members, and they support our work. And was able to build, we were able to build a group, Street Voices of Change, on the same concerns that I had. And I found a place where I'm not alone. This didn't just happen to me. This is not just an isolated incident. These are things that continue to go on. And through all of that, what do we do with those grievances? Why is it not, what's not working? What can we do? And that's how the Shelter Residents Bill of Rights, Street Voices of Change, Shelter Residents Bill of Rights came together. And it's been a long journey. We've made lots of collaborations along the way. Hennepin County with the Office to End Homelessness, David Hewitt. Hennepin County Board. We've had meetings with the mayor of Minneapolis. It just goes on and on about all the collaborations that we've had. And also collaborate with the Freedom from the Streets and NAMI. It's just been phenomenal how far we have come to do this work. This past summer, we saw a lot of park encampments that just blew up, and a lot of folks were saying exactly what Street Voices has been saying for a long time. They don't want to go there. They had their experience there. They had their trauma there. Can they trust to be treated fairly? There was even a point where people were paying all of their money to stay at shelters. A lot of folks don't know shelters aren't free. There are some shelters that actually were charging people. We also were able to collaborate with this Salvation Army, and they started making changes. One is where people don't have to pay all their money anymore. To only get $700 and you pay the shelter and you walk away with 100 as personal needs. How do you go look for housing? How do you file an application? And so the collaborations have certainly come quite a long way. I did have a sharing screen somewhere, but I don't see it. Oh, there it is. I see it now. And so staff training on conflict resolutions, engaging people with mental illness, that was a big thing. And standards for evicting someone from emergency shelter was a big thing. I got a call after I was housed from a friend who was kicked out of a shelter at 11 o'clock at night, and I had to scramble to go find someone to go pick this person up. So the Shelter Residents Bill of Rights is really important, that there's a certain guideline that is adhered to make sure that people are treated with dignity and respect. And I just appreciate this time today, and I will stay on if folks have any other questions. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyra, for sharing your personal experience as well as your work on putting the Shelter Residents Bill of Rights together and bringing it forward to the Homes for All Coalition for consideration. And so just to add on to what Tyra said, this is the first time the Shelter Residents Bill of Rights is on our full agenda, and definitely going to be changing the conversation around the Capitol. And so we look forward to that happening. All right, next we have a spotlight on the Emergency Services Program, and I will turn it over to DeAndre from Catholic Charities.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is DeAndre Gordon, and I'm the public policy advocate with Catholic Charities. Today, I'll just be giving you an overview of the Emergency Services Program. So I want to first start by saying that the Emergency Services Program, like investing in the program, is a top priority for Catholic Charities, as well as the Homes for All Coalition. It's the most flexible source of funding for Minnesota's shelter providers to respond to the unsheltered crisis. Many of you know, as Sarah mentioned, encampments have been popping up across the metro area, but also across the state. This program provides the dollars that help shelters operate, from supporting staff, food services, to keeping the lights on, and more. The program, it's been underfunded for several years, and so our ask is for $15 million ongoing, so that shelters are better able to provide life-saving services that they do. So, with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, hundreds, if not thousands, of households are staring homelessness in the face due to loss of income, months of unpaid rent, and all of this puts additional strain on a shelter system that was already operating over capacity. Shelters do save lives. They're not meant to be a permanent solution to the affordable housing crisis, but they are critical to helping people transition out of homelessness and into stable housing, including home ownerships. So just want to close by saying the legislature does not increase funding for the emergency services program. It means that shelters will remain under-resourced to provide the services needed to properly help individuals who are facing the most difficult of circumstances, putting increased demand on public safety and emergency room services, especially as the pandemic goes on and hospitals are stretched thin, because that's where people experiencing homelessness will end up if they are having a health crisis, and that puts additional strain on the system because there's no the resources aren't enough. So in terms of ways that advocates on this call, your friends, your colleagues can help, you could contact your legislators. Fortunately, we live in a state where our government's fairly transparent, so you can go to the Minnesota legislature website and find a representative and send them a note. Homes for All action alerts, that's another way. The charities also does action alerts, so you could subscribe to our action alerts and respond. Personal stories are also great to share. Not only is Catholic Charities a service provider, we also are a landlord, and so these are things that we think would be really helpful. And then you can also consider writing op-eds as well, because that's one way to increase the visibility of the program, especially in greater Minnesota, because homelessness is not isolated to the metro area. It's also in greater Minnesota, and arguably in greater Minnesota, there is even more of a need because shelters tend to be smaller, and most shelters are either privately funded or self-funded. So I see a question in the chat, what will be accomplished with 15 million? 15 million right now is the ask. There's definitely more, but that covers things like staffing, covers things like training for staff. It also covers beds. Like I said, the funding is very flexible, so shelters have some discretion in terms of how they can use that. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining me today, for allowing me to talk about the emergency services program. Like I said, it's a top priority for us, especially as we anticipate the eventual lifting of the eviction moratorium, because over this pandemic period, more people have been seeking services from shelter. So thank you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I will definitely stick around for questions. Micah is a good partner as well as Homes for All and the Minnesota. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, DeAndre. And I also, you kind of touched on this, but just wanted to highlight the fact that, you know, the ESP, there has been, that has been part of the Homes for All kind of COVID-19 emergency response request as well. So not only were the needs there before the pandemic, which is what the 15 million base increase would be for, but there were these additional costs on top of that. And so ESP remains a focus of the coalition in terms of COVID-19 response, plus just increasing the overall funding amount as well. So next I want to turn it over to Sam Smith to talk about the Bridges program.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Smith. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Public Policy Coordinator with NAMI, Minnesota. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today in the Homes for All Coalition for the endorsement of this important proposal and the ability to participate today. NAMI Minnesota is a grassroots organization that provides education, support, and advocacy for people living with mental illnesses in their family. All of our staff members live with a mental illness like myself or are a family member of someone with a mental illness. And I'm here today to talk about housing in general and Bridges in particular. People with mental illnesses are much more likely to experience housing instability or homelessness. And we know that when someone is struggling with the symptoms of their mental illness, it can become more acute when you lack the stability that comes with having housing. For our NAMI members, housing is consistently a #1 issue, whether you're engaging our rural members in Western Minnesota or our affiliates in the metro area. And one program that we have identified as being especially important is the Bridges Housing Voucher. As I'm sure many folks here know, Section 8 vouchers are an important resource, but you folks can be on wait lists for years. And so the Minnesota moved forward with a program called Bridges, which provides a subsidized housing voucher for someone with a serious mental illness on a Section 8 wait list. As the name implies, the voucher is a bridge until that person is able or family is able to access a Section 8 voucher, after which the Bridges voucher will then become available for another family. The Bridges voucher is currently available in 70 Minnesota counties, as well as the Leech Lake, Mille Lacs, and Boise Fort tribal nations. And this is a statewide resource because housing instability and homelessness is a statewide problem. Currently, base funding for this program is $4.338 million, and we know that this is nowhere close to meeting the demand, which is why, once again, the Homes for All Coalition is going to be joining us to advocate across the board to expand access to housing, including the Bridges Housing Voucher. And I want to thank again for the opportunity to be here today. You know, really inspired and motivated to see so many housing advocates getting ready to gear up for a tough session. It's going to be a big fight, and NAMI Minnesota and the mental health community is extremely excited to be side by side with you all. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Sam. And as Sam mentioned, if you have questions, please go ahead. Oh, it looks like, Sam, there's a question. Is there a wait list for the Bridges voucher as well, or how does that work? If you could outline that.
It's a great question, and unfortunately there is a wait list for most Bridges voucher programs. It's going to depend by the county, but you know, we're in a situation where one of the things we say at NAMI is that, you know, we still haven't built our mental health system, and we still haven't built an effective housing situation. So in this case, there's a wait list for the wait list for the wait list. And so that's really unfortunate, but is frankly the reality we are dealing with now. And I see Jeremy says, thanks, Sam. This is one of the resources I used to get where I am today. Really reassuring to hear that. And that's why we're pushing for these programs, because we know they work. This isn't a question of what can end homelessness and what can get people housed, but do we have the will to invest in these programs? So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I just want to highlight the fact that, because there is a wait list for the wait list for the wait list, that's why these programs are so important to be on the Homes for All agenda, and that our advocacy at the legislature is so critical, because we know that there are people out there that could benefit and become, game changers for people if they just have access to programs like this. To Jeremy, he said this program helped him, and I think that's just a testament to the fact that why we need these resources to be increased. So thank you. All right, now we're gonna shift gears a little bit and hear about eviction reforms that are on the Homes for All agenda, and I'll turn it over to Michael Dahl.
Thank you, and as everybody's been saying, thank you so much for everybody that's on this webinar, this rally, virtual rally, and I hope that we sustain a strong work together to get the resources we need to address the affordable housing crisis, the homelessness crisis, and also the situations that many tenants are facing in our state in keeping their housing. I'm going to tell you, I'm with the Public Policy Director. My name is Michael Dahl. I'm the Public Policy Director with Homeline. And Homeline does 4 things. I just want to give a little context for why I'm making this presentation. We actually have a hotline where we take thousands of calls each year. Last year was over 15,000 calls from tenants who are having issues that they need help with. Sometimes those problems are ones that are financial in nature, where they're going to face an eviction because they can't pay the rent. Other times they're having a dispute over repairs with their landlord, and they need help figuring out how to solve that problem. And it's through the information that we received on our hotline that we brought forward these proposals on eviction reform, which I'll just be talking about in just a minute. But I also wanted to say that we do organizing. And so if you live in a building where the issue is not one that you alone are experiencing, that you should give Homeline a call, because sometimes we can provide help in organizing. We also do education on renters issues. And then lastly, we do advocacy. And I want to talk about the advocacy that we're doing on expungement reform and pre-eviction notice, and be happy to answer any questions that people have after I'm done. Evictions have a devastating impact on the short and long-term housing stability of renters across the state. And in a normal year, there's more than 13,000 residential evictions that are filed in Minnesota. Now, we don't know what's going to happen when the COVID era ends and there's no more resources and there's no more moratorium, but we are concerned about there could be a flood of evictions coming into Minnesota because people haven't been able to pay the rent because they can't work. But in any case, 13,000 is our regular year of residential evictions. And this can come at great expense. It's expense not only to the family or the household that's experiencing it, but the community that they belong to, and also to all Minnesota taxpayers. And so Homeline is pleased to be working with Homes for All Coalition and calling for smart, targeted, and impactful policy reforms that can have immediate and lasting impact on thousands of renters across the state. Just to fill you in, right now, an eviction can be filed on someone the day after the rent is due. So the second of the month, a landlord may go to court and file an eviction against someone, and oftentimes without their knowledge. Minnesota is one of only a handful of states that does not require that their landlord formally notify their tenant before filing an eviction. In contrast, if a landlord violates their lease by failing to make necessary repairs, a tenant has to write a written notice and provide 14 days for that problem before they go to court. So we want to get some parity there in notice periods. One thing also to note is that the simple filing of an eviction action by a landlord against a tenant appears immediately on the tenant's record, and that's before the court has ever rendered a judgment or even heard the case. And it can happen whether or not the eviction was warranted or not. There's just this mark that an eviction action has been filed against you, even if the tenant wins. The record still shows on their, the eviction still shows on their record, which is enough for, unfortunately, for many landlords to deny renting to someone. And this means that an eviction is often a permanent bar from them getting housing. Evictions are widespread. They happen in counties across the state. And they impact a lot of folks, sometimes not just the person that's the lead on a lease, but also multiple defendants can be listed, including families and children. Studies have shown, however, and we want to point this out, that disproportionately single African-American women with children are facing eviction at the highest rates. And so we want to ask, along with Homes for All, that there be a number of things that are done. First is a pre-eviction filing notice. We want a filing notice that says that someone would have 14 days before a formal eviction is taken against them, and that they've been notified by their landlord that this time period has started, and a list of the problem that needs to be fixed. This would allow the tenant the time to fix the problem, to negotiate an agreement with their landlord, or to quit the lease and vacate it so that an eviction is not necessary. It's important to note that pre-filing eviction notice would include information for tenants on where they could apply for assistance and get financial help. We also think that after an eviction has been filed, well, first of all, we don't think an eviction should belong on someone's record until a court has actually heard the case and a judgment has been rendered in favor of the landlord. This would mean that tenants have the time to actually resolve the situation before an issue makes its way all throughout the court process. But there are also some protections we want for people who where the eviction was not necessary. It means that if a tenant prevails in a case, they should have the eviction taken off of their record. If the case was dismissed, it should be taken off their record. And if the parties come up with some sort of with an agreement and the tenant lives up to the demands of that agreement, that the eviction should not appear on their record. And lastly, and this is really important because eviction action appears on someone's record indefinitely, is that an eviction would be ordered off of someone's record after 3 years. We think these things could actually help prevent a lot of homelessness. And so we're happy, again, Homeline is very happy to be working with Homes for All on this proposal.
Thank you so much, Michael. I know that is a lot of kind of wonky information to take in, but thank you for kind of dissecting it for us. And this information, or Homeline will have I think a specific handout as well that we can share with folks too, and probably put that on our website as well. So obviously you can see that the importance of kind of these policy changes as well as the funding mechanisms too. And so our last agenda spotlight is on affordable home ownership, and I'm going to turn it over to Greta Gates.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I am really happy to be here, and I'm feeling really energized to learn from all of you. And it's, I think, just the best part about working together is that we can all kind of come together and put forward this great slate of issues. So I'm here to talk about affordable home ownership. My name is Greta Gates. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. And we are known for building houses with volunteers, mortgage lending, and preparing people to become successful homeowners. So affordable home ownership is one part of the housing continuum. And I want to spend a little bit of time first talking about why investing in home ownership is important. So as an integral part of the housing continuum, we think that increasing access to home ownership will improve the overall housing ecosystem. So currently in Minnesota, we have over 188,000 households who are income qualified to purchase a home, but they're currently renting. And of these renters, about 28,500 are occupying the most affordable rental units in our state. So if renters are able to achieve homeownership, it'll then create more affordable capacity in the rental housing market and create just a healthier, more affordable rental market overall. This can reduce housing insecurity and homelessness when there are just more affordable units to rent. The next area of importance is that homeownership is the primary way that families can build wealth and pass it on to their future generations. Currently, the median net worth of a homeowner is about 44 times greater than that of a renter, and owning a home results in net wealth increases over time because you earn about $10,000 for each year that your home is owned. And then the last area is that Minnesota has one of the worst racial homeownership gaps in the nation. So while overall our state has one of the highest homeownership rates, we also have one of the widest racial gaps in homeownership. Nationally, there is a homeownership gap of about 25%, but Minnesota's gap is much worse. It's 36%. And our state has a history of racial covenants, racist lending practices, and ongoing income inequality that has led to this disparity. So currently in Minnesota, we have about 77% of white households who own homes, but only 41% of households of color own their homes. So because of these three issues, we've set up a few different kind of areas to focus on for solutions. So these are to produce more affordable homes, so to actually build and develop those. To preserve affordable homeownership opportunities and make sure that people who own their homes can stay stable in the homes that they're in. And then third, to continue preparing people to become successful homeowners. And one of these areas, the produce area, is reflected on the Homes for All agenda through a program called Workforce Homeownership Minnesota, or WHOM. So this really gets at the goal of increasing that development of new affordable homes. This program can fund building new homes, it can fund home rehabilitation, acquiring land, and then also projects in manufactured housing communities. So our current ask is to invest more in the WHOM program through either direct funding or source through this technical capturing of growth in a certain tax called the Mortgage Registry and Deed Tax. And we've calculated that if we invest $8 million in this program each biennium, so each 2-year period, it would increase affordable homeownership production by about 25%, and we'd be able to add approximately 100 new additional units of housing each year. So we're really excited to advocate for WHOM as one of the ways to invest in affordable homeownership and create more opportunities to build wealth for more Minnesotans.
Thank you so much, Greta, for that clear and pretty stark overview of where homeownership is in Minnesota, particularly when it comes to the racial disparities and how much work we really need to do to continue to make that gap smaller and provide opportunities for our BIPOC neighbors. So just wanted to give out a thank you to all of our additional panelists today that provided a spotlight on our agenda. Again, we have more issues than just these, but wanted to make sure that we kind of provided an overview of not only the full continuum of housing, but kind of those key areas that we're focusing on this year. So thank you so much again for taking time to kind of really delve into kind of more of the specifics. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to the policy team co-chairs. I'm not sure if Michael actually mentioned, but Michael is a policy co-chair as well. Then you'll hear from our other policy co-chair a little bit later on. So I will turn it back over to Paul, I think.
Yes, thank you, Carrie and Michael, our co-chairs, and the entire policy team and all of those who presented on our legislative agenda. Next, we will hear from our community engagement team.
Thank you, Paul. So my name's Matt. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Homes for All engagement team. And first, we are going to have Wilder walk us through some of their Minnesota homeless study. So Rebecca, if you would just like to go on ahead.
Sure, sounds good. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Rebecca Sales. I'm a researcher at Wilder Research in St. Paul. And we do the Minnesota homeless study every 3 years. I'm trying to get the slides to pull up for me so I can see them. So we do the statewide homeless study every 3 years since 1991, and it is coming up already this year, October 2021. So I'm sure you all will be hearing from us at some point, but really brief overview. The homeless study consists of really in-depth interviews with persons experiencing homelessness in approximately 300 shelters, programs, or outreach sites across the state. We also have a census component to that as well to get counts of people so that we know an approximate total in addition to, you know, the number that we actually were able to do the in-depth interviews with. We do end up having around 1,000 volunteer interviewers that help us out with the study. It's a really huge effort, you know, and of course, a significant effort from the programs and the sites that contribute their staff time to do the interviews. That's really fantastic. And then I should also say we do have a companion study conducted in partnership with 6 American Indian tribes across the state as well. So that's a really fantastic addition to the statewide study that we've been doing since 1991. So what I want to talk about today, in addition to just, this was the really brief, like, it's coming this year, this is sort of what it is. I want to make sure that everybody on this call knows what you can do with the data that we get, and just a really brief view of how you can access the data. Because really what we have found, and I'm sure what you all have found, is the most powerful tool in talking with legislators and thinking about policy change is really the stories along with the data. You know, on their own, they're each really great, but when you pair up those two tools, it's just such a powerful element that you can use. So how can you use the data that we collect through the homeless study? So really, first and foremost, we want to be able to ensure that people can understand and communicate counts and characteristics at the COC level, the Metro versus Greater Minnesota level, and then of course, statewide. We look at trends over time. Like I said, we have been doing the study since 1991. So we are able to really look at a number of really important trends over time. And then lastly, we're able to look at the needs of particular populations, and that can be related to needs for trauma-informed care, needs for culturally specific services, a whole host of things. Anybody who has ever conducted the interview knows that we ask about a whole breadth of questions, so in topic areas. I'm seeing a few people nodding their heads, yes. So how else can you use it? So in a second, I'm going to jump onto sharing our webpage for it. And so we have fact sheets, we have summaries, we have reports, we have the raw data, and you can use all of this stuff, like I said, along with stories to be able to answer questions and to be able to move forward your policy positions with stakeholders, policymakers, anybody else that needs to hear it. So I do have a few examples before we go to the website. So these are all pulled out of existing reports that we have, and you can definitely use these. We tell people, please use the information that we have, just make sure you cite it and make sure that people know that it's coming from us. So for example, this is one of the main trends that you'll see. So this is the one night count number. I'm sure everybody has probably seen this before. So this is one example of something you could use in sort of a policy one pager. And I'll have you go to the next slide. So then here's a characteristic example, kind of breaking down the homeless population by age. So using a pie chart, another great graphic description of what the homeless population looks like. And then the last example, I think we have one more, there we go. So then just a table kind of breaking down ACEs experiences or adverse childhood experiences that, again, this comes out of our main statewide study report. And then what I'm going to do, so right now I'm going to share our webpage, which is mnhomeless.org. Okay. And so you go to mnhomeless.org. This is the main page you're going to be brought to. You can scroll down for any of the latest materials that we've put out. You can see the most recent one was a report among LGBTQ Minnesotans, homeless LGBTQ Minnesotans. If you aren't getting our email notifications, you can sign up for email updates. So we will let you know right away when we are publishing a new report. But let's say you want to go to the data. So we're going to say study results, and then you can jump to overview. This information is going to be really the key findings that are coming out of our statewide study. So you could even just jump on this page, say you wanted to like copy and paste this image, put it into something that you're going to use. You could definitely do that. I'll just scroll down briefly. You can see we have a lot of great information. You want to read the full report, click read the full report. It'll take you there. I'm going to jump back up to study results. You can go to detailed data as well. And this is going to give you an opportunity to, if you really want to just look at that counts data, you can do that here. If you just want to look at the interview data, we do have detailed data tables. I'm not going to go into those right now for those of you who have been to our using data presentations. That's not this, but that does exist. If you are looking for something really specific or want to do a bit more of a deep dive, you can do that. We have a new interactive data tool, which is really great. But really, overall, and here's like our list of publications that we have this year over on this side, but really overall, what I want to stress is we have a ton of great information, and, you know, start out looking at our reports and summaries. We have spent a lot of time and energy into distilling the tons of data that we gather into some really key points. And so please feel free to use that. But if there is something more specific that you feel like you need or can't find, let us know. Send me an email. There's email addresses for a number of other people on our website. We definitely want to make sure that people are able to use this information to advance all of this fantastic work that everyone's doing. So thanks so much for giving me time today.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I'm going to go back and share the screen here. And I am actually going to hand it off to Mary now to do an overview of one-on-ones.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. We've covered a lot of really important information so far, and we want to make sure that you have a variety of ways to engage with it and also to do the advocacy work. So one important tool in the Organizing and Advocacy Toolkit is the one-on-one. And simply put, the one-on-one is a brief, intentional, face-to-face meeting with another person where you're looking to uncover self-interests, see if there's common ground, and look for potential to build a professional relationship moving forward. So it really gets at the relationship building aspect. Prior to COVID, we really like to have them in person over coffee or at a park, because you were really trying to listen intently to the other person you're speaking with and also share about experiences. Obviously, we've all had to adapt over the last year, so it'd be completely acceptable to do it over a video platform like Zoom, and to still do like a virtual coffee or tea. Because you're really looking to find out what motivates the person you're speaking with, it's important that you guide the conversation in a way that they end up speaking about 70% of the time while you speak about 30% of the time. So we'll head into some of the do's and don'ts of the conversation, and that will kind of help see what we would be talking about a little bit. So again, you will be sharing about yourself because that's what helps us get at those common interests and common ground. And also it's important to consider leaning in. So they'll be sharing about their experiences with the questions you ask. And you might have a sense that there's a story that was really vital to who they are as a person, and maybe it feels a little bit comfortable, but I'd encourage you to ask a follow-up question to probe a little bit more, because that can really help us understand what a person cares about and how that shapes their life. There isn't really a formula for doing a one-on-one, but it's important to not make it feel like an interrogation or an interview, or to use it simply as a recruitment tool. Even if you think they might want to be involved in your issue campaign or your organization, the point is really just to learn about who the person is, to share some about yourself, uncovering those self-interests. And with that, you know, you might really feel connected as you speak more, but it shouldn't be a search for personal friendship. It's really a professional relationship in a lot of ways, even as you enter into work together. And the last point of caution is a tough one, because hopefully as you're talking over 45 minutes, you'll really learn about who they are, find out important things, but it's so important to be present in the one-on-one. So rather than take notes while you're talking, leave time for yourself afterwards to jot down some key takeaways, maybe some points you'd like to follow up on. Maybe they have people they recommend that you reach out to. There'll be a chance to move into that going forward, but really be present during that conversation. And this leads us nicely to our next point of reflecting. So after the conversation, make sure you have time to think about the relationship. So did you find common ground? Is there potential for a relationship moving forward? Maybe they really said that they would like to be involved in that issue campaign or involved on Homes for All, something like that. Also, it's important to reflect on who that individual is. So take time to think about what they care about, why they care about it. What's their story and what experiences were really central to that? You want to have uncovered stories that are tangible, emotions that really motivate them, find out their talents and abilities and how they're using them right now. And then also make sure you leave time to reflect on yourself. So what you did well during the conversation, what you'd like to work on going forward. Were you courageous? And we talk about that with leaning into that conversation. It can be uncomfortable to probe. You want to be respectful of the person you're talking with, but that's when we really start to get at what motivates the person we're speaking with. That's where we are open and vulnerable. So have that courage. This is obviously a very brief run through of a one-on-one. We would love to have a chance to practice it and do it together, but that's where we do have some next steps that will help us have time for that. So the community engagement team with Homes for All is working to dive into one-on-ones as well and share resources. So we want to invite you to join us. We meet on the first and third Wednesdays of the month from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. We're meeting over Zoom right now. So if you'd like to get involved, I've put Matt's email here and he will make sure you have the information if you reach out. Again, they're 45-minute long meetings ideally. And so we couldn't do it today right now, but if you'd like to practice with us, join the community engagement team and we can see if we can make that happen. We'll also be posting some of the resources on our website. And so those will have some of the very brief points I outlined and really go into them more in depth. They cover how you can practice inviting someone to a one-on-one, making clear that you'll be speaking for 45 minutes, maybe about these issues, or you want to hear their ideas on this topic. And the last thing really is just to practice. So reach out to friends and colleagues who maybe you already feel comfortable with, but you'd like to learn more about. There is no formula, as I said, but it can still be something where it takes time to build the skill, but you're more than capable of doing it. And it's something that will be really rewarding and helpful to doing the advocacy work, because we know that having those relationships is really what helps us advance on these issues. So thanks again for joining us today. I hope you can join us for some of the community engagement team meetings. But again, thank you and take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Mary. So that was an overview of some one-on-ones and really intentional relationship building conversations. What we're going to do now is MCH, the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless. What we've been trying to do as well is, we're statewide, so really trying to make sure we're getting input from everybody across the state. So ideally, we could meet in person and all that, have a really lengthy conversation, but there's also other ways that that's not possible. So this video is just going to be, it's going to be about a 5-minute, it's a kind of interview, but also conversation. But Lisa from Red Lake, who has gone through their shelter system, gone through all their programs, just really inspiring. So this is an opportunity if you, your organization, you as an individual advocate, just think of this as an example of, let's really talk about homelessness and, real people talking about real issues. So I'm going to hit play here and hopefully it works. So thank you for tuning in for our regional interviews that we're doing across the state. Our goal of these interviews is to highlight the need that we need to advocate to end homelessness across Minnesota. And today we have a special guest, Lisa from Red Lake. And I'm just going to dive right in, Lisa. So our first question for you is, You know, we talked before this, and you were mentioning we need more shelter beds. Can you expand on why we need more shelter beds? Like, what do you personally think? What's it like in Red Lake?
There's a lot, I don't know, there's way more homeless people than there are beds available. And it's, I mean,
Sure.
the program that I mean, it helps a lot. And they need more there's way more homeless than there is beds.
Right. You know, you mentioned the program. Can you expand, like, what is this program that you're talking about, and why do you think it's a helpful program?
I don't know. I just, you know, it's Jordan's program. I just call it that because I don't know. I found him, and, you know, I dealt with him in the past. He has helped me before. And then I became homeless again for a year, and I found him again, and he helped, you know, I went through the program, and now I'm in my own house. So
that's amazing. So, and when you mentioned Jordan, just, you know, we also have interviewed Jordan. Jordan's from Red Lake. He runs the shelter out there. So if you wanted, you know, to make sure people understood something, you know, about homelessness, you know, why we need to fight so hard to end it, what would you tell people? Why is it so important to end homelessness?
From my experience being homeless, it was hard. It's hard to be out on the street and not knowing where you're gonna go, you know, from one night to the next or one day to the next. And I don't know, it's just hard not knowing what you're gonna do every day, you know, or where you're gonna be or where you're gonna sleep, or, you know, it was hard for me. I think I walked the streets of Bemidji every day, back and forth, not knowing what to do, and it was hard.
Right. And now you're here willing to be interviewed to talk about how important this is. So thank you for doing that. You know, you mentioned Bemidji and Jordan and Red Lake. When we're thinking about some of the resources that need to go into it, what was helpful for you to get, you said you have your own home now. What was helpful to make sure you got your own home?
Just, I don't know, just like being able to have them here to help me to do the applications and send them in, and, you know, and not having to worry about that part there, you know, because not knowing where to take them, not having a ride, not, you know what I mean? Not having no transportation, that's another thing, you know? You really got to have a lot, and they helped with the transportation part and going to Section 8 and stuff. So yeah, they're a big help. It was a big help.
Nice. Well, congrats on having your own home. Can you just briefly, you know, once you got your own place, what was going through your head? What, you know, you said it was really hard, you know, for a while there before you got your own place. What did it feel like once you had your own place?
I'm happy. I mean, I was happy. I didn't know what to do at first. I didn't know how to act because it was like I hadn't had a place in a while. So I was like, oh my God. But now it's like, I mean, at least I know I have somewhere to go, and and it's home.
It's home. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you. So thank you for tuning. All right, I'll hand it back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Matt and the community engagement team. Now we'll send it to Zach Eichten, who will talk about our Lawmaker Awards.
Thanks, folks, for being here. It's been a great program so far. Thanks to everybody who's put work into it. My name is Zach Eichten. I'm the new Director of Public Policy for the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless, and also the newest co-chair for the policy team for Homes for All, along with Michael and Carrie, who you've heard from earlier today already. It's my honor to be able to present our 2020 Housing Champions Awards to all of the folks who have helped us with our Homes for All priorities in the last several sessions, including all of the special sessions that we had to go through as well. And let's just, I'm going to make sure that all of our folks are here. But as we start out, Sunder Abler is going to be our first champion who is going to get acknowledged today. And Sunder, you'll have a minute here to give some remarks as well. But Sunder Abler was one of our housing champions, especially right at the beginning of the pandemic, getting more than $25 million out the door for our homeless shelters and our providers to be able to continue to provide safe and accessible shelter. Sunder, without your help, of course, our shelters would have been facing a very difficult situation and making sure our shelters were safe. So thank you. And for that, of course, you're going to be one of our 2020 housing champions. And we will be looking for your leadership this upcoming session as well. Sunder, now would be your opportunity to say a few remarks.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, I'm honored and surprised, but thank you. You know, it's just quite a task, and I think actually maybe the champion should be the woman who just spoke and the people that are facing all those challenges. And I know that's stories, and I mean, real life days like that are what motivate everybody to try to make a difference. And so I'm glad to be a small part of it. And I didn't catch your name, but God bless you, ma'am. And many like you that we're trying to make a difference about. So thanks so much. And I'm actually really pleased to be with this nice group of legislators, all of whom are remarkable as well. So thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Sunder. And our next award is going to go to Senator Carrie Dietzick for a whole bunch of work that she has done, but very specifically her work around tenant protections and tenant advocacy. In the last session, she's been a huge champion of renters and of course all of the issues that folks like Michael talked about earlier. Senator Dietzick's been a huge champion of. So thank you, Senator, for being one of our Homes for All champions.
Thank you. It's so nice, and I want to thank all of you for all the work that you're doing. I think the collaboration that you are doing is making a big difference. As you know, you kind of talked about on the video, I think you were asking the right questions. It was so heartbreaking to see and unacceptable to see all the homeless this past year. I had 3 homeless encampments outside within walking distance from my house. And so, I mean, that's just not acceptable. We have to, you know, be bold and be creative and find solutions. And I am hopeful that we can all work together with your help and make some changes this coming year. As I said, I think in the video, you're asking the right questions because I do think we need to engage people who are part of the unsheltered community or formerly unsheltered community and start to ask, you know, what were the barriers to get them into shelter? And then what are the barriers that are keeping them from getting into stable housing and home ownership? I think we need to do that to close some of the disparities in our state. And then, as you all know, housing improves health and education outcomes, and that is so important. This is not a partisan issue. Housing is just a core basic to, and is so fundamental to everything that we're doing. So I look forward to keep working with you because I think we need to go bold and go big so that everybody can go home. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. My dog is barking, so give him 1 second here while my neighbor walks past. Sorry, everybody. The joys of working from home. Sorry about that. He's going to go for it. Let's move on to our next housing champion here. And that, of course, is Representative Erdahl. Representative Erdahl has been a absolute key player in housing this past session. He's been a champion of investing in affordable housing through the bonding bill for years. But especially critical in getting the bonding bill passed last fall. And because of that, we're going to be able to have thousands of new affordable homes that will be built in communities across the state. And these homes will help stabilize families, support low-wage workers, and local economies. So for that, Representative Erdahl, thank you for being a Homes for All champion.
Thank you. And I've got Buster here with me, so your dog can say.
I'm not the only one with the dog.
Thank you very much for the award, and more importantly, thank you for all the work that you are doing for affordable housing and to make sure that people have a place to live. I was very pleased that we were able to get $100 million for affordable housing into the last bonding bill. As I'm sure you all are aware, it was quite a struggle to get that bonding bill over the line. It took us till October to do it, but finally we're able to do so. And really one of the keys that should be in every bonding bill, and a key for the state of Minnesota, is to make sure that we do have affordable housing for people living out here in greater Minnesota. We have a couple of very important issues in terms of our workforce. One is daycare, and the other is housing. You can't get people to come out and live and work in greater Minnesota if they don't have a place to live and someone to take care of their children. And so I've been involved in both of those areas, but particularly housing. And hopefully in this biennium, we will again find a way to do a bonding bill and find a way to put more money for affordable housing into it. So thank you very much again.
Yes, thank you, Representative. So let's move on to our next award for lawmakers, which of course is to Representative Hausman, chair of the House Housing Committee, and for all of her advocacy over the past biennium and moving forward into this biennium already, and making sure that housing is a priority in the House. And Representative Hausman, just thank you for all your work. Thank you for your close partnership with Homes for All. And really, without your partnership, a lot of the work that we would do as an advocacy community wouldn't be possible. So thank you just for honestly, every hearing that you have is really helpful for the housing advocacy community. And for that, of course, we want to recognize you as one of our Homes for All champions.
Thank you very much. I'm sounding the theme that all of the advocacy groups are trying to use this year, and that is shelters save lives. Housing ends homelessness. Nothing else in life goes well if you don't have a safe place to sleep at night. But here's our challenge. 1 in 5 people live in poverty. The pandemic has made the income inequality and poverty worse. So between poverty and the pandemic and income inequality, the homeless crisis is growing, despite the vast amount of work that all of you are doing. But Jeremy, I won't give up. That was the challenge you gave us in your earlier speech. And Jeremy, I won't give up.
Thank you, Representative Hausman. Obviously, we're very happy to continue to work with you in your role as chair. And we have one last lawmaker award here, and that is going to go to Jenny Nash. Jenny Nash is the committee administrator for the House Capital Investments Committee. And legislative staff are the absolute backbone of the legislature, often under-recognized, which is why the Homes for All Coalition started the staff award for lawmaking 3 years ago. Without Jenny Nash, quite frankly, a bonding bill might not have happened without all of the hard work that she put in, especially to get this bonding bill off the ground in the last biennium, throughout all of the special sessions, pushing for it. So Jenny, thank you for everything you do, and we wanted to give you just a little bit of appreciation as one of our Homes for All champions this year.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and humbled to get the award. And this whole group, you're the champions. And the folks that share their personal stories, those are the champions. And you're just all doing great work. And it's appropriate to come after Representative Hausman, because I was sitting in her office several years ago when the housing advocates would come in and she would tell them that they should form a coalition because their voices would be louder and their message would be stronger. And that worked out pretty well for everybody. But I was really happy that that bill got passed. Representative Erdahl, everybody was so helpful. And it took 5. The 5th time was a charm, but I'm so happy that it was able to get across the finish line. And it's because of your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you once again to all of our champions in the legislature, staff and members. Without you, our work wouldn't be possible. And we're looking forward to working with all of you again this upcoming session. So with that, I will pass it back to Paul.
Thank you, Zach, our lawmakers, and Jennifer. And now we'll kick it to Ron Oleheiser for our Advocate Awards.
Thank you, Paul. As Paul said, I'm Ron Holyheiser. I'm co-chair of Community Engagement Team along with Matt Trainer. And my job is Executive Director of Grace House, which is a homeless shelter located in Grand Rapids. This is the first time Homes for All has formally recognized advocates, and we plan to continue this annually. This year, we've selected Janelle Anderson, Rome Daring, and Linda Soderstrom, and I'll say a couple words. They will each receive a small token of our appreciation after this event. Janelle brings a keen understanding of homelessness to her work, along with an invaluable outlook and her wholehearted desire to spread the truth of the homeless experience. She is the founder of Freedom from the Streets, which is now expanded to be their own nonprofit called No More Street. She is on the board of MICA, the Homes for All leadership team, and works tirelessly every day to fight homelessness. Congratulations, Janelle. Rome Daring. Rome is a heartfelt leader and leads so all voices can be heard. He is a true example of how we should treat each other with dignity and respect. He got his start in advocacy with Street Voices of Change. He's a board member of MICA, a member of Freedom from the Streets, a leader of Envision Community's Tiny Home Project, and also on the Homes for All leadership team. Congratulations, Rome. Linda Soderstrom. Linda is a fierce advocate who lives in Southeast Minnesota and has been involved in efforts at the local and state level. She is vocal in both what she says and her actions in ensuring that people who have experienced homelessness or housing instability need to be part of all decision-making processes. She was a member of the Crossroads at Penn Renters Group, who used their tenant voices in 2015 and then piloted a tenant speakers bureau in the Twin Cities. She stays in touch statewide as a board member for Housing Justice and Freedom from the Streets, a member of Homes for All, MICA, and the National Coalition for the Homeless. Congratulations again to Rome, Linda, and Janelle, and all of the advocates across our great state of Minnesota. It's my pleasure to read these comments, and now I would offer Janelle time to say a few words.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody, and I don't want to forget about my start. And I think people forgot about but I think I think Street Voices has changed, because Street Voices of Change, if I didn't do advocacy in Street Voices of Change, I would never have Freedom from the Streets. Sitting in Street Voices made me learn a lot of things about people and who do what, and laws and everything else. So I think Street Voices of Change. I think Joe Kreisman. I think Pastor Melissa. And not only that, I think Sue Wallace too, because if it wasn't for Sue, it would not be Freedom from the Streets either. So I think all of these people that was in my life that helped me get up there where I am now, as me being homeless and formerly homeless and people on the verge of being homeless, and that all three of them is me. I see myself in all three of that stages of life. But I thank all of them for that, because they was a big part of my life. And I think the Polad family last year for giving us a start on helping us get to where Freedom from the Streets is today, because of the simple fact, if they did not help us get there, we would not see anything that we see now. Now we are working in camps. Now we working at the people. We are getting people to understand us and listen to us, because we've been there Freedom from the Streets is a group that is made of all three of those things. And we only have the people that's been there on our team to do the things we need to do. So I thank everybody that had hands in Freedom from the Streets. I thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle, and I'll turn it back to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And certainly we thank all of our advocates for your hard and tireless work. We want to let everybody know that we're almost finished. We're almost wrapped up. So hang in there with us for just a few more minutes, please. At this time, we will kick it back to our comms team for information on the Twitter storm.
Thanks, Paul. As I mentioned earlier, Twitter storms are one of our key tools, and we really hope that you'll all join us for a Twitter storm next week on Thursday, January 14th from 9 to 10 a.m. We would love to have you as a co-host. If you or your organization is willing to do that, please let us know. And like I said, we'll have tweets ready for you to share, and we would just love to have as much engagement as possible. As you've heard throughout this whole presentation, there's so much work that we are excited to be doing, and so much funding and support that's needed. So we really want to get this legislative agenda in front of our elected officials.
Thank you to everyone who's joined us for the road home, our co-chairs, those who shared powerful stories, the Homes for All communications team, policy team, community engagement team, our lawmakers, and our advocates for being here with us today. We're going to kick it to Chad Adams for our wrap up.
Yeah, and that brings us to a close for today's event. Thank you for joining our legislative kickoff event today. Thank you to our MC, Paul Slack, for leading and guiding us through the event today as well. To all of our lawmakers for their great work, our advocates for your awards, to all of our storytellers, and to all the other panelists for their great engagement today. Thank you as well for your great advocacy this past year, as the results have been clearly demonstrated through successful legislation, funding, and policy in 2020. We've got great work ahead of us, and we're looking forward to your involvement to advance Home for All's agenda and goals in 2021. Make sure to check out our website for upcoming information and to also to endorse the 2021 legislative agenda. That link is included here as well too. We've talked about the Twitter storm and the social media presence here with Homes for All through Twitter and Facebook. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Pastor Stu if you have any questions or any other feedback regarding the Homes for All Coalition. Thank you everyone again today. I appreciate all your great work. Take care, be safe, and looking forward to a great 2021.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
You're all great.